Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Conversant Connection Diaries. I'm here with my two esteemed colleagues, Gretchen Gagel and Jim Matroni, and we want to give you a little introduction to some of what we just learned from talking to executives from 30 different companies around the world about how these leaders are responding to the COVID-19 crisis. We found there were actually 5 themes that were overwhelmingly popular. One of them was leadership communication. Another is crisis response. Another is the mental and emotional well-being of all the people in our systems that we serve. Another is, how can this crisis be a catalyst for valuable change? And the final one is, how can we have a strategic response to this incredible, dynamic, unpredictable situation? So we're going to tell you a little bit about each of those in the hopes that when we have longer and deeper dives into these, you might join us. So who's going to go first by giving a little window into these themes?
Hey, Mickey, I'll start. I want to talk a little bit about the well-being theme that came out in this research. And it's really interesting. We've been digging a little deeper into some other research for a client. And just prior to the pandemic, a study showed that 39% of employees have reported some type of mental well-being challenge at work in the last year. That's more than a third of our employees. And what this pandemic has done, it's really kind of given us this catalyst to step up as leaders and be fully present to what is going on with our employees. I think that the challenge out there is when we talk about crisis response is we can get very task oriented. We need to get people monitors at home and we need to get internet connection and, check. And that we can just kind of speed by those mental well-being challenges. But it's definitely a topic that's on the minds of the executives that we're speaking with.
And Gretchen, in the research, is there anything for us to highlight about what people have done that's actually not helping people's mental and emotional well-being?
Yeah, I think that focusing on those tasks, just staying, really in the crisis response of getting things done and not being fully present to what's going on with employees and their mental well-being. I think that that's a thing that takes time and reflection, and people may not be forthright. Research also shows that a huge majority of people with mental well-being challenges at work feel really uncomfortable sharing those. So I think as a leader, not being present to what's going on with your employees can be really detrimental.
Jim, that feels like a natural lead into leadership communication, because if the reluctance to speak is an issue, what can we as leaders do to have people in the midst of this kind of frightening crisis feel free to communicate?
But yeah, because there's something, Mickey, that keeps coming up in all these conversations is that we need to be connected to the truth. That part of the leader's job is to tell the truth. Part of what they evoke from the people that work with and for them is what they're seeing, the truth of what they're seeing. Because that's what we want to be communicating about up and down, is what are we seeing and what does this suggest to us? So this notion of frequent communication, leaders being the source of truth, the leaders being willing to tell the ugly truths. And what's not working in those situations is somehow pretending that we're not in the middle of challenge, to make happy talk, that somehow this is not affecting us the way it's actually affecting us. And then when they have to make challenging decisions, the context is off. It hits people, people get whipsawed in that.
Well, I know, because I've known you for close to 30 years, that for you, the truth is not just information, it's also emotional. It's the leader telling the truth about he or she, what they're going through, what they're struggling with. And I think we found that that creates the room for other people to say the things that they thought were too uncomfortable to say.
Yeah, because there's a real question right now of what is okay to talk about. And what can we evidence? Can I say that I'm scared? Can I say that I'm worried? Can I say that I'm unsure? I just got off a coaching call a couple of minutes ago where that was exactly the question for a senior exec is, how much can I say I'm unsure? And for leadership communication, for leaders to show the kind of vulnerability that's necessary for us to really understand what's going on in the system. What do people know? What are people feeling? is huge. And that's connected up to that sense of well-being in the system.
And we found it's interesting if there's a combination of calm and candor.
Mm-hmm.
People can say, as long as they're staying calm and being there, like they trust talking to who they're talking with, no matter how powerful and senior the executive is, they can be candid about what they're going through. And we found it actually is getting other people to open and trust their leader more.
Yeah, because in the face of a crisis, especially when the unknowns are so much larger than the knowns, our ability to have open conversations and to be calm and admit what we do know, at the same time to be willing to say what we don't know and what scares us a little bit, allows us to be agile in the face of this crisis rather than frozen. So that idea about crisis response is so connected up to our capacity to be truthful with one another, to be calm in the face of it, and also not to allow ourselves to make these anxious reactions to things that are that ultimately prove not to be helpful. To just shut off all spending, for example, or to make decisions around things that we know were strategically important. Now we're just cutting off all of those. No more of X, Y, or Z. Well, that, sometimes you need to be more surgical in the face of this. And then people get that sense of calm and their ability to respond increases significantly.
Yeah. Jim, it's interesting you use the word agile because that ties into another one of our themes, which is around being a catalyst for valuable change. And the fact that, getting people to challenge their assumptions about the way we've actually done work. We've heard multitudes of stories of people said we couldn't have call centers remotely. And in 2 weeks, we had remote call centers. So it's really been a catalyst for people to challenge their thinking and their paradigms and their frameworks about what works and what doesn't. And leaders being very cognizant of that. And, as Mickey loves to say, stop proving you can't, that you can't do something, right? That we're creating psychological safety, I think, beyond this time period for people to wonder about how our work can be done.
Oh, I love that. We're creating psychological safety that lasts beyond this period. That's beautiful. Sorry, Jim. I
was just saying, and one thing this brings up to people in this situation is, are our strategies still intact?
Mm-hmm.
What has everything changed? Do we have any terra firma at all?
That's why the question you asked earlier, I think, is a really powerful question about what do we know still matters. What about us still is crucial? And just stopping and, as you were saying, having the calm conversation instead of just thoughtless reaction, we've seen people make much smarter choices.
Mm-hmm. I think that also links to the point we learned in this theme of catalyst for change around culture, and that, we need to use this time to strengthen our culture and be true to our values and true to our identity, which is going to enable us to come out the other side successfully.
Jim, do you think there's a downside to abandoning culture in the middle of this crisis?
The conversations that I'm having with folks and that were in the research said that in one way, the most challenging things that they do, but on the other hand, the easiest decisions they make is to reinforce the values and culture that we claim. That when they come back to that, it provides the North Star that these decisions don't get any easier, but they sure get clearer in a hurry. And very much one of the respondents was saying that this is a time when our culture is either proven or disproven. Our values are either proven or disproven. And people have long memories about how did we treat our culture and our values inside of these really hard decisions.
I think that we've also seen that a lot of people say that those values are strategically important. That they are
into the strategic response theme, frankly.
Right. That they're ethically important, but they also are ingredients in the strategy. And another thing that we've seen people really be concerned about is what is our strategic response to this completely unexpected swirl of events that we cannot yet see the end of. And that one's been fascinating because the thing that we've seen that's worked is people who really are asking those questions about about our strategy is still relevant. Mm. What about it are we going to preserve no matter what? Mm. And the thing that's also powerful is to start considering different kinds of future scenarios instead of waiting for enough certainty to pick the one we think is going to happen. Mm. No, let's pick some variables and say, if this happens, this would happen in our company. If that happens, that would happen in our company. And begin to consider, how do we care for our strategic importance in a variety of different potential scenarios? So we've seen strong leaders who are starting to care about those questions now instead of waiting for more information. And that's really the downside. It's the people that are going, well, we don't know about strategy. We're going to wait. Like, we're going to wait till the world tells us what's still important about us. No, we think you can lean into the question about what about our strategy is still important. We just have to figure out how to protect it in different conditions.
And Mickey, is there part of that you noticed in the conversations where they recognize that each step in strategy informs the next step in strategy, so that it's not just we're going that way forevermore, no matter, we're making a left-hand turn forever for the next 10 years?
Well, this is one, as you both know, we went deeply into with 10 senior executives. And it's definitely something that's high experimentation, short cycles of experiments to test what parts of the strategy can remain viable in the various conditions that might greet us over the next year or so. So that one will be one of the virtual gatherings we offer, and we'll get into more deeply. So our intention here was just to share with any of you who are interested that there are these 5 themes that were very important, and we've learned a lot from people in 30 organizations. If there's anything about those that attracts you, then please watch. We'll have the newsletter coming out every 2 weeks. We'll give you access to that report, and we'll also let you know when we're having virtual gatherings about each of the 5. So in closing, anything for the 2 of you?
Just that I was shocked at the consistency between leaders and the challenges that they face. And inside of that, what great ideas came out from people once you get them in those conversations.
Jim, you literally took the words out of my mouth.
Well, then I guess what's left is goodbye for now. Thank you for being interested. We'll be with you again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mickey.